The main character was an introvert who wouldn't get along with people. But his life changed that day, after he ran into that girl. But before that, the story moves back to his school on that very day, in his classroom. The main character was making drawings of various types of furniture which he aspires to make. He was so drawn into the process that he didn't pay attention to what was going around him. That a few of his classmates were playing baseball with a rag and a broomstick, and unfortunately, the rag ended up hitting the main character on the face. The main character was a bit shocked by this, but the guy who threw it at him quickly admitted his fault and apologized. However, the guy refers to him as Utsuzawa, which leads to the main character correcting him, as his name is Kusei Kitsuzawa. The guy, though, was more interested in the fact that it was the first time he ever heard Kusei's voice, because he does keep a low-key profile. The guy notices Kusei's sketchbook and asks him what he was drawing. Kusei tries to cover it up, so he assumes that it is anime art, and assures Kusei that it's fine because he too likes some anime like Demon Slayer. But before Kusei could continue the conversation, everyone's attention turns to a girl yelling out her surprise and seeing Saika, the beauty of the class, in a photo shoot with popular model Miko Cheiso. Saika flexes, as the girl talks about how it is amazing that an amateur model like Saika was able to shoot with someone like Miko Cheiso. Saika then clears it up, saying that they just happened to be shooting at the same place, which got her the gig. Naturally, the guy talking to Kusei also turned his attention to this conversation, and he had a crush on Saika 2.so. He ended up ignoring what Kusei was saying and left to join the conversation that was happening. This upsetted Kusei, but what got to him more was how the guy managed to seamlessly join the other conversation too. Disappointed at himself, he just decides to go and watch his face. However, Saika ended up noticing the disappointment that was on Kusei's face as he left the washroom. Kusei looked at his face and regretted not being able to use the opportunity to start a proper conversation. He thinks about how it has already been months since school has started, so the social groups have already been formed. He couldn't get into one of those groups, so he has been left behind, alone. He is what one would call a typical loner introvert. Kusei really wishes he could just go in and join a conversation like the guy earlier, but he doubts that it is only possible for the elitists to do something like that. He imagines going up to the girls and trying to join the conversation, but he feels they would just snub him. But if it ended like that, he would be fine, but he suspects that they would think of him as a weirdo. Not only that, he also overthinks about being crucified for such a small thing. Regardless, Kusei can't help but wonder if he can even make friends outside of being in groups. It makes him question how he had been making friends up until now, that he can understand bonding with someone over a shared hobby or something. But for someone like Kusei, being able to get sad or happy over something others like is akin to a talent by itself and something he can't do. But there is something that he can do. As he was getting out of the washroom, a girl came to see him. Kusei recognizes her as the girl who sits next to his seat. The girl introduces herself as Yakakura and says that she has a sudden request. She smiles nicely and says that she has a favor to ask of him after school. Kusei is initially confused, but after school, he ends up fixing a wooden stool for her, as she had asked. Yakakura praises him for being able to fix it in the blink of an eye. Kusei thought it was nothing, as he only nailed down a cracked stepboard. Even so, Yakakura thought Kusei was quite skillful at what he was doing. Kusei reveals to her that it is because his parents own a furniture workshop and he occasionally helps out there. This amazes Yakakura. She further adds that she saw the sketchbook he was working on earlier and thought he would be someone who can help her with this. Kusei feels a bit embarrassed and says that while he mostly does this to help out his parents, there's a part of him that also wants to design and create furniture of his own. Yakakura listens with a fascinated look and tells Kusei that he already is a very good craftsman, but Kusei insists that he still has a long way to go. After this, Kusei asks her what the stool is for, to which Yakakura reveals that it is for the club that she is in. Because they have a very low club budget, him helping her out like this really saved them. Kusei tells her to not think much of it, and states that he is happy as long as she is happy with his fix. Yakakura was about to continue the conversation when suddenly another girl came in and told her to come for the club activities. Kusei is left disappointed as Yakakura tells her that she is coming. Yakakura then bids him farewell and tells him to come visit their club sometime. She leaves him standing. They're alone, as he wonders what club she is even in. Afterwards, he walks out of the room and prepares to go home. As he is walking, Kusiai thinks about how Yakakura is a nice person. He had thought of her as an introvert too, but she turned out to have really good social skills. Kusiai is unhappy with himself for even thinking that he could become friends with her. However, he quickly consoles himself, as there were positives too. He talked to two people today, and that is progress. Even the great Sonomata Castle, which was said to have been built within a day, actually took many days to be completed. So there's nothing to be upset about, as friendship isn't something that can just be formed overnight. As he walks on the sidewalk, he thinks that he shouldn't rush things, because there are definitely people out there for him to get along with. Meanwhile, a girl is seen humming a song and riding her bicycle right behind Kusiai. As he keeps on walking, Kusiai observes the sky to notice that the cloud was shaped like the family crest of the legendary Toyotomi clan. This made him wish to become a social bird like Hideyoshi Toyotomi, someone known for his social skills. But he thinks that it's quite a stupid wish. Just then, the girl mistakenly runs her bicycle into an obstacle, which makes her lose her balance, and she was about to run straight into the wall with her bicycle. She was shocked, and Kusiai told her to watch out, but it was too late. The girl, who is the amateur model Saika from school, opened her eyes as she was surprised by how she wasn't hurt despite being sure that she was doomed. But her bicycle had been caught by Kusiai. The girl is shocked to see this, as Kusiai, who had taken a hit to the solar plexus, asks the girl if she is okay. Saika then thanks Kusiai for saving her. She praises him for being deceptively fast and asks him if he is okay. Kusiai was on his knees from the pain, but told her that he is doing okay. He recognizes her as from his class, but isn't sure about her name. He asks her if her name is Taguchi. This was a bit surprising for Saika, but she tells him that her name is Mizuguchi Saika, as she offers him a hand to get up. Kusiai takes it as she tells him how Taguchi is her friend's name and not hers. Kusiai apologizes, but is immediately struck with fear. He wonders if he will be punished for messing up the name of someone who is on the top of the social hierarchy. Saika was about to ask him for his name, but notices Kusiai apologizing to his mother and father as he was supposedly preparing to meet the end of his life. Saika is shocked by what he was doing before breaking into laughter. She didn't know what he was up to, but it was sure funny. Afterwards, she tells him to at least introduce himself, as she did tell him her name before. Kusiai obliges and feels that he was rude by staying silent till now, that he tells her that his name is Kusiai Kitsuzawa, and Saika finds his name interesting. Kusiai explains that his name consists of the kanji for health and life, but Saika seemingly was thinking about something else. This made him wonder if he had somehow pissed her off. Kusiai has a bad mental image of Jairus, so he assumes that Saika would just beat him down with a friend of hers. Fearing that, he decides to retreat. He took his leave and was about to leave, thinking they would never talk again. But just then, Saika tells him to wait. Kusiai looked back and noticed that Saika's cycle was making a weird noise because the chain had fallen off. Kusiai asks her if he should fix it for her, which delighted Saika. Kusiai then gets to work, as Saika constantly apologizes to him for first hurting him and second making him do all the work. Kusiai tells her that it's fine and that the work isn't much. Meanwhile, he was thinking about how she might not be a bad person after all, despite him having thought so beforehand. After all, she was constantly apologizing. He also recalls hearing that she is an amateur model. A person like her would normally never talk to a person like Kusiai if it weren't for a situation like this. Eventually, Kusiai gets the chain hooked again, which surprises Saika as she praises him for how quickly he manages to do it. Saika then asks him if she can post this video of his on Instagram, which makes Kusiai realize that she was filming him without permission. Kusiai thinks about it, but doesn't think that it would be nice to have his face on the internet. He was about to tell her that, when Saika assures him that his face isn't on the video while giving a big, fat, bright smile. Kusiai is taken aback by this. Being an introvert, he isn't used to handling extrovert pressure. Saika reassures him that it'll be fine, and that she will only be posting it on her private account, where only her friends will watch it. Suddenly, Saika notices that she made a mistake, but she still thinks that it'll be okay. Making a mistake made Kusiai worry, but because she told him that his face isn't on there, he is fine with it. Kusei then tells her that he will be going and advises her to change the chain on the cycle, as it has gotten old. Saika agrees. Kusei starts walking as he wonders what goes on inside the head of an extroverted person. It is too tiresome for him to even think about, so he decides to just go home and rest. But as he keeps walking, Saika follows along behind him. Eventually, Kusei looks back and realizes that he is being followed. Saika then asks Kusei where his house was. Kusei is made uncomfortable by this, as he wonders what she will do by knowing his address. So he gives her a vague reply, saying he lives nearby. Saika thinks he's quite lucky for that because she would have loved to live close to the school as well. But Kusei was still worried, as he wondered if he was going to be followed all the way home. They eventually reach a place where there are two paths ahead, so Kusei tells her which way he is headed. Saika follows suit and adds that she has never been this way before. This confirms Kusei's guess that she might be following him for real, but Saika subsequently admits that she is just kidding and that she will be heading the other way. She and Kusei bid each other farewell before she heads off in her direction. Kusei starts walking once again as he thinks about how her actions had seriously scared him. He is genuinely baffled by her weird behavior. Meanwhile, Saika suddenly realizes that she forgot to do something, so she returns and calls out to Kusei. Surprised, Kusei looks at her, only to see her come very close to him and saying thanks to him for fixing the bicycle for her. She then started huffing but still had her hands up at Kusei, so he asked her what it was. She then points at her hand, to which Kusei asks her what she wants. Saika explicitly tells him to give her a high five, so Kusei reluctantly obliges. Still, he gets overwhelmed by her strong energy. Kusei then sees how Saika had run all the way to just thank him. He understands that he might have seriously misunderstood her and that she really is a good person. She once again says bye to him, and this time Kusei responds warmly and with a smile. He understands that he would never know how a person is without talking to them. But as he began to walk again, Saika stopped and reiterated Kusei's full name, and smiled mischievously as she wondered if it really could be that. The next morning, Kusei arrives at school, where everyone was chirping about something. As she enters, he is greeted by Yakakura, whom he greets back. This was a huge leap forward for Kusei, as he was talking to someone naturally for the first time at school. Kusei then mentions to Yakakura how it is quite loud today. Yakakura tells him that it is because a boy has appeared in Saika's latest Instagram post. Kusei freezes on the spot as he thinks about how it surely can't be him. But as Yakakura pulls up the video and shows him, it really turns out to be him after all, while Yakakura wonders if this was her boyfriend. Yakakura, noticing Kusei's state, asks him if he is fine. Kusei tells her that he is, but that he is feeling like his breakfast is coming out of his mouth. Taken aback, Yakakura tells him that feeling like that is surely not fine. But Kusei was worried about something else. The guys who watched the video were pissed off and they were mad at the guy in the video that a witch hunt had begun to find the guy. So if it were to expose that it's Kusei in the video, this could very well end up to be his last day alive. Just then, Saika arrives at school, greeting the guys as usual. Kusei sees her and thinks about how she surely doesn't think of him as a friend after what happened yesterday. But still, he doesn't even want her to greet him because that will probably draw the attention of the guys to him. But his worst nightmare comes true as Saika smiles brightly and greets him as a result of appearing in her video and also being greeted now. Kusei was in a pinch because the guys were all mad at him for all of this. Afterwards, Saika thanks Kusei once again for fixing her bicycle. She claims it runs like new after his work on it. However, Kusei feels a sudden pressure from all the boys glaring at him because of this. Just then, Miyasaka, the guy who threw the rag at Kusei a day earlier, comes and points out how Saika is seemingly having a great time with Kusei. Miyasaka directly asks Saika if she has always been this close with Kusei. The boys in the class secretly cheer him on for asking the questions they wanted to ask, but Saika simply replies by telling him that it's none of his business, which the boys also think is a valid response. Miyasaka then talks about how he was just scrolling through his Instagram when by chance he ran into what Saika had posted. The boys think that was not by chance, and Saika thinks so as well, as she calls Miyasaka an internet stalker. Miyasaka tries to deny it by saying it was really a coincidence, but the boys think his excuse is lame. Miyasaka then pulls up the video and says how the guy in the video is very clearly Kusei. So he wanted to know if Saika and he were dating. The boys get excited thanks to this, as this is what they wanted to ask. Kusei nervously tries to deny it, but Miyasaka snaps at him, yelling for him to be clear with his answer. Saika steps in and asks Miyasaka why he is shouting at Kusei, which forces Miyasaka to apologize hesitantly. Saika makes it clear to him that whether she has a boyfriend or not is of no concern to him. Yet he still insists on picking a fight every single time he doubts something. Miyasaka blushes and is about to admit that he likes Saika, and that's why he is acting like that, but he is suddenly pushed away by Saika's friend. The other friend of Saika asks her what she was doing there and who those guys were. While Kusei looks on at Miyasaka, who was sent flying by Saika's short friend. The short one then turns her attention to Kusei, who she recognizes as the guy who was in Saika's Instagram post. She states how she saw the post Saika made on her work account, so she assumed that this guy was her boyfriend. Saika clarifies that she posted there by mistake, and that Kusei just so happened to run into her and help her out with the bicycle. The boys hear this and subsequently forgive Kusei, relieving the poor guy. Afterwards, the bell for homeroom class goes off, warranting everyone to get ready for the class. Saika prepares to leave as well, but before she leaves, she comes back to tell Kusei that she will be thanking him later properly. Kusei is left confused by this, while Miyasaka watches on in anger. After a few classes, the clock hit 12 p.m., and it was finally time for lunch. And as Kusei starts readying himself for the lunch, Saika pops out of nowhere and asks Kusei what he usually does for lunch. She offers to treat him to bread or cafeteria food if he likes that as a thank you for the day before. Kusei is seriously taken aback by Saika's 4D personality, but he shows Saika that he already has homemade lunch with him, so he turns down her offer. Saika is deflated by that, but also praises Kusei's mother for being diligent and preparing lunch for him. Kusei tells her that it is actually him who prepared it for himself. Just then, the short friend pops out of nowhere and expresses her surprise over Kusei's ability to cook. Kusei recalls Saika telling him that this friend of hers is the one called Deguchi, which makes Kusei ask if she's the real Deguchi. Chika Deguchi is taken aback by his weird question and asks if there was an imposter of her. Saika giggles in the background as Chika talks about how Kusei is outrageous when her tall friend, Ria Sonoda, joins in and tells them to come with her for lunch. Chika tells Ria that they'll have to go by themselves, as Saika is planning to mooch off of Kusei's lunch. Saika denies this, but Ria comes up with a better solution. The three girls take Kusei along with them to have lunch together. Kusei joins in, but doesn't understand how he ended up in this situation. Meanwhile, Chika points out how Saika brought a bread along with her, seemingly confirming her doubts that she was planning to mooch off of Kusei, but she denies it anyway. Kusei feels anxious as he feels everyone is staring at him. This is when Ria praises him for preparing all that food by himself. She points out how he had grilled fish for his lunch, and that it must have been time-consuming to prepare that. Kusei says it's not that big of a deal because he saves recipes beforehand, so it makes his cooking process much easier. Ria hears this and says that she would like to try making that as well. Kusei then asks Ria if she also makes her own lunch. Ria tells him that she makes too, as her boyfriend also nags at her to make lunch for him. Ria then goes on about how it's kind of rude to ask women to cook in the modern age, which makes Kusei worry if he had touched upon a sensitive topic. But Saika assures him that it's fine. Ria always likes to pretend that she's annoyed by her boyfriend's antics, but she actually loves doing this for him. Ria tells Saika to stop her weird whispering, but Saika retaliates by telling her to stop her usual bragging about her boyfriend. Chika finds this quite funny, because Saika is the one most likely to start bragging when she gets a boyfriend, something Ria agrees with. Saika owns up to it, saying she 100% will brag, because her boyfriend will be her true and fated love. She blushes up while talking about this. Kusei finds this quite surprising, because based on her behavior and looks, he assumed Saika would already have a boyfriend or two. He then remembers how he already learned not to judge people by their looks yesterday. After that, Chika asks Kusiai if he has a girlfriend. Kusiai smiles and says he doesn't. He instead spends a lot of his time alone. This surprises Saika, as the other two talk about how it seems boring. However, Kusiai thinks that it is not, because he can focus on making things he likes. Saika then speaks up, calling Kusiai a comrade of hers in their ideology of love. Kusiai denies being anything like her and attributes his single status to his lack of social skills more than anything else. Even so, Saika thinks that Kusiai is actually quite easy and normal to talk to. Sometime later, after school, Saika stretches herself as she prepares to head home. Her eyes darted straight to Kusiai, who was already heading home. It made her wonder how he was so quick and if he was doing some sort of speed run. This makes her smile to herself as she thinks about how interesting of a person he really is. Soon, she comes to realize how she has been staring too much at Kusiai these days. She has taken an interest in him, even before he fixed a bicycle for her. After all, he isn't the usual type of person who tries to live in the moment. Instead, he focuses on his goals and strives to create things. She also remembers seeing him draw concept art for furniture once during break time. She glanced at his sketchbook to see how his lines were as accurate as a machine. She couldn't help but be amazed by how good he was. Afterwards, as she exited the room and was heading out, Miyasaka called out to her, prompting her to ask what he wanted. Miyasaka tells Saika that a new takoyaki shop has opened up nearby and that he would like to take her there. Saika declines his offer, feeling weirded out. But Miyasaka keeps on insisting to take her and give her a treat. Saika tells him how she has a shoot coming up, so she can't have takoyaki. But he is persistent. Saika is disgusted by guys like him. She knows that he probably tries to hit on her because she's an amateur model. He's the kind of guy who just lives with the vibes, grins for no reason, and judges people based on their looks. However, Saika realizes that she herself is like that too. Saika then walks ahead, leaving Miyasaka behind as he tries to stop her. Saika gets out and takes her bicycle along with her as thinks about various things. She thinks about how it is great to have something one truly loves and can dedicate there. Time to doing that. Kusiai has that, and she wants that type of motivation. But her modeling job simply doesn't give it to her. Just then, she realizes that while thinking about Kusiai, she has probably arrived at his house. The name was Kitsuwa Manufacturing Company, and as that surname is very rare, she is sure that it must be him. She assumed it would be far from where they last parted ways, but it was quite nearby. Still, she felt like a total stalker. She looked at a board there, which said that there was creative furniture available there. Because of that, Saika thinks of taking a peek inside. When she does so, she's shocked to see Kusiai, now in work mode, working tirelessly with a determined face. She is mesmerized to see how he was working and how much attention he was putting to little things that IT made her realize that he really is an amazing person that in the heat of the moment, she couldn't help but feel the need to capture the moment. She takes out her phone and clicks a photo. Unfortunately for her, she had her flash on, which alerted Kusiai he is shocked to see her, and Saika is surprised by her own instincts to make her do that. Kusiai asks her how she got there and why, before realizing that it wasn't important because he was more concerned about the photo she took. Saika tried to make her exit, telling him that she won't bother him. But as she tries to take off on her cycle, the chain drops off again. She is reminded of how Kusiai told her to change the chain, as it had gotten quite old. Meanwhile, this moment of deliberation allows Kusiai to grab a hold of her. Saika understands that she is very much screwed now,